just posted the link for the GitHub repository in the chat, and it's not something that you have to clone right now. It's just a set of predefined sort of steps that you can copy and paste out of in the README and some snippets that we've prepared, so we can get this going a lot faster than we normally would.
And by the way, you will notice in the repository there isn't actually a result, meaning there is no application to clone, because we didn't want to shortcut the whole experience of building this whole thing hands-on. And of course, the experience of running into issues. You don't see the link?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I think Zoom posted to all panelists by default. Apologies.
Oh. Let me change that on my end as well.
Yeah, if you want to post to everyone.
Yeah.
Okay. So
do you want to get started?
Yeah. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen so everyone can see. This is the repository that I linked. And as you can tell, we've already outlined some of the basic steps that everyone needs to have, like Node.js, obviously, and then a global installation of the Angular CLI, which this is ng-conf. I assume you already do. If not, then quickly you use this command and get yourself a copy. And then what we're gonna start with is actually we're not gonna start from a bare bones Angular project. We're gonna start with a project that's pre-configured for our Ignite-Y for Angular product, and it has some additional benefits as well that we're gonna discover right now. So what we need to do that is to get a global installation of our schematics, which is step 3 in the repository. So I already have it, but I'm gonna go ahead and run that anyways. Can I make this go away?
What do you need to make go away?
Oh, I guess you don't see it. It's my panel. It's the Zoom panel on top, but I guess it's not visible to everyone. Okay.
Yeah, we're just seeing your screen and over on the side your two faces.
Yeah, I'll deal with it, I suppose. That's fine.
Just move it all the way to the right.
Yeah, and even if you've already looked at the repository, since I believe those were in the links before, just go ahead and grab the latest version, because we've released updates even today. So, yeah. This should give you something in the lines of Ignite-Y's Angular schematics 11.7.701. And I guess this is the point where I ask everyone to just raise hands and let us know that they're ready. All right.
I hope I'm saying this name correctly. Masa is saying that in the view options in Zoom, you can hide the green bar.
Cool. Yeah, it's fine. It doesn't interfere all that much. I know the command. All right. Hands have been raised, and then they're lowering.
All right, perfect.
Okay. At that point, I would assume that we're good to go. All right. So once we have those schematics installed, we can actually use those as a collection for ng-new, which is exactly what I'm going to do. So start with ng-new, just like you normally would. But this time, don't add anything else. Just provide the collection argument and say that the collection is, and I'm just going to go and copy paste that because I am very lazy. It's what we do. We're supposed to be lazy, so we can figure out stuff, ways to optimize things, right?
For everyone attending, you can copy paste from the README in the repository that we linked.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah, this has at the setup stage, it has all of the commands that we're going to be running and some of the commands that we're going to be running afterwards as well. Constantine laid it out all in the README, very detailed.
Yeah, just FYI, there is a lot of things that are not in the README, just high level. And so you still have to, keep up with us and raise your hands when you're done so that you don't fall behind.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and run that. What this is going to do is pick up our schematics and run some prompts for us. So the first thing it's going to ask is probably expected is pick a name for the project. I'm going to go with ng-conf workshop 2020 because why not? And then something interesting happens. See, we have a bunch of templates for a new project that you can build off of. We have a very basic empty project that's pretty much a slightly upgraded version of the blank engineer project you get with routing enabled in SAS. We also have a project that's pre-set up with some navigation and layout. And then what we also have is a further update that also brings some built-in navigation services. And we're going to go and pick that one because it's the most blinged out project that we want to show off.
It doesn't only have navigation. It also has some pre-built authentication snippets.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so I'm gonna show you guys around the project in a second once we get it up and running. So okay, we're gonna go and pick that project template, and then it's gonna ask us what team do we want to use for a project. We can use the default Ignite for Angular team, which I'm actually going to show off. I think that should be easy enough to show off, right? Maybe not this one.
Just choose custom.
I'm gonna choose custom because we'll use it further on to customize the team even more. And then it says the project is done, and we're gonna go hit complete and run. Something that we should note: Ignite Angular is available. Is it dual license, Constantine?
Yes, it's on a dual license model. And so for this workshop, we're going to run it without a license because we don't expect that attendees have acquired a license for our product. But the product is fully functional without the license as well. Yep. There's like a visual glitch, let's call it this way, with the trial watermark.
You're going to see in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're going to skip for that for now. And the port is 420 as per usual. And then it's going to go ahead and spew out a whole bunch of files and start installing. Has everyone been following along so far? Anyone falling behind? Oh, good. Okay.
Which team did you choose? Default or custom? And you got that? Did you just install the Angular schematics that we have, or are you running with the version that you've previously installed? Fresh install.
Fresh install. That is super odd. Yeah, because there is a doc manager somewhere in there in the schematics, but it's not supposed to error out.
Right.
Definitely not like that. Oh, try over. Yeah, please do. And let us know what's going on. Oh, so more errors. Oh boy.
Let me see that. Angular Dev Kit. And this is in a fresh project, right?
Yeah, it's even Angular. It's like the build version is 11, so it's not even old for dev kit. If the current version of Angular's dev kit brings out an outdated Karma version, that is super odd.
Okay, there's actually a couple more errors. People
Okay,
they're all different. So we have one collection, Ignite Angular schematics cannot be resolved. And that should be because of a missing global install.
Yes.
Yeah. So you have to npm install globally Angular schematics in the README. This is, hold on.
I'm gonna explain that a little more in detail. Angular CLI resolves schematics either within the project or globally, and since we're running ng, there is no project, so the only way that it can resolve is global install. Yeah, if you run it if you manage to install it locally, then it might. Although that is a really odd way to work around that. I remember at some point Angular CLI didn't resolve those for me as well. Maybe try updating your Angular CLI version as well.
Oh yeah. Old Angular CLI version would cause some errors.
They've had errors in the past, but I haven't seen them for like at least 2 major versions doing that to me.
Oh, you had the project from the README. Yeah, just start with the blank repository.
Oh yeah, okay. I guess that's on me because I failed to mention we're just starting in a blank folder. We're not running inside the project at all. I'm sorry if that got anyone confused. Yeah, we're creating an entirely new project. Like I said, you don't need to download this repository. It's just here for the README and some snippets that we're gonna include in a little bit.
So Damien and I already have the app running. Can we get a raise of hands of people who still don't have them have the project running? Okay, good.
Almost there. Okay, that's good.
Okay, looks like we have about 80% success rate. Seven. This looks good.
All right, we haven't done anything too complicated as of yet.
Yeah, but both the CLI and the schematics need to be installed globally for that to work in the blank folder.
Because if you have already installed packages, ng is just gonna freak out.
Mohammed's saying there's a lot of code being generated.
Oh yeah, there is a ton of code being generated for this. But then again, if we're gonna do like a complicated application, it's not going to go to waste. Trust me. Seems to be working now. Okay, good.
Let me just check again. How many hands do we have?
5 hands.
5 hands. Nice.
I guess I can start showing around what we have.
Yeah. You can walk through the project structure while people still get it set up.
I really don't want to kill my running application right now.
Yeah.
I'm gonna kill it in a second though, because we're gonna be doing some more stuff to it. Should I just do the performance measurement right now? So,
Damien, walk us through the project structure first, and then do the performance. You can do it from another command prompt, or just open it from.
I'll just open it separately.
Yeah.
All right. You should not exist, buddy. Bye.
Leftovers.
All right. So what we got generated at this point, it should seem very familiar. Like, it's basically an upgraded standard Angular CLI project. That's what we're doing. So Angular CLI is still included in the project, as well as our schematics, so you can run all of the commands from here on out. Any command you expect will run just fine. It's an Angular 11 project, and what you have, for the most part, is very standard, except, again, the app component is pre-configured, as you already saw up until now. We have a layout setup, which has a navigation door, which shows us our navigation views. And we also have a navigation bar on top, which hosts the login. And we also have a router outlet set up somewhere as content. We also have one home component that doesn't really do much of anything besides being a welcome. And what we also have set up is routing, of course. And the big part of this project, besides being ready for all the Ignite to Angular components, and we're going to see how easy it is to install those in a second, or more like a few minutes at least. But the big thing here, we have, in the routing module, we also have some uncaught error. So we have a global error handler, and we also have a page not found component. So a little bit of setup for you guys there. And then the big part, we have an entire authentication module, which is right here. There's a button to log in inside the nav bar. And it's already pre-configured with a local login, so an email plus password. And you can also go ahead and say, like, I want to create a new account with first name, email, password, that kind of thing. It's very basic, but it's supposed to be a jumping off point. So basically, you have a full-on authentication service that's configured to work with a backend. So the current login methods that go in are trying to call an API for login, an API for register, and an interesting part, an API for an external login. So we have something else hiding in here. What we have are a bunch of providers. And we have a basic provider interface, which goes into a login, logout, and get user info. And the project is already configured with a basic OpenID provider. It's using a fairly popular library called Angular Auth, OIDC, which is OpenID Connect client. And it's one of the certified OpenID Connect libraries for Angular and TypeScript. And we have, based on that, there's a basic provider which you can use for anything, like Konstantin uses it for Twitch, right? And we have, based on that, we have a Google login provider, and we also have a Microsoft account provider, and there's a Facebook SDK included in this project, because Facebook doesn't still, I believe, implement OpenID, but they have their own SDK, and this is also pre-configured. But the main point of this is all tucked away in an authentication folder in your project, and it's all just pretty much ready to be used. So, for example, what we deliver in your application module, you should be able to see this, is within the constructor, there is a link to some documentation we have for our authentication project, and our service that comes with the project has some registration points for different providers. So basically, all you have to do to get some social logins is to grab an account, your client key from your Google Developer Portal, for example, and just uncomment this line. I'm not going to enter an ID right now because that would be silly. But what you're going to see is basically this button pops up. And if I uncomment out the Facebook thing, it's gonna pop up with all the sign-ins, and they all do work. Although that's very invalid client, so I'm not gonna go with that. But it's just something to know. Like, it's extremely easy. Like, uncomment one line, plug in the key, and you're ready to go. All right. At this point, we've seen what we have, and I should show you what we're going to try to improve in the future. So I'm going to open up some DevTools. And I'm going to jump to Lighthouse, which is the performance evaluation tool built into Chromium's DevTools. And I'm going to run a quick report.
And Damian, why do you do this? Can you tell us?
All right. Yeah, sure. So what we're trying to establish is some measurement within our application. Of course, keep in mind, guys, this is currently running a develop on the dev server, so it's not optimized in any way. So the performance measurements we get here are not going to be extra meaningful, but they are somewhat meaningful. So what we're looking for is to evaluate how quickly our application performs, and most importantly, to evaluate how quickly it loads. And there are multiple measurements for loading performance. It's not just how quickly you're gonna transfer your files over. So that's one thing. It's also how quickly is the user going to see something, and how quickly is he able to interact with your application. And what we're looking for right now, what we're looking at, is the first contentful paint, which basically shows you the first content that is presented to the user. And I don't know how visible this is. I guess if I zoom in.
Yeah, we can see the first three snapshots here are blank screen.
Yeah. So our first contentful paint is not that bad, in all honesty, because this reloaded really quickly on my local machine. But there is like a certain period when you load the application where the user sees just a blank page while Angular bootstraps the components, renders components around, they style themselves for their size and actually appear to us, right? And that's something that we can improve. And that's actually something that Angular's team provides as tooling for us, and it's done through server-side rendering.
So, Damian, we have only one hand raised still.
Okay.
But I'm not sure if there is still a problem or the person just forgot that they raised their hand. I don't know how to mention in this chat.
Add somebody? Does that work? No.
I'm trying that. It doesn't suggest, like, you know, we use Teams instead of Zoom, and we're used to some, you know, something stuff from Teams. Anyways, in the interest of time, maybe we should keep going.
I am just gonna go ahead and save this preview and keep it tucked away. Yeah.
Okay. And what are we doing next?
unless the demo gods are really evil with us today, we're gonna see an improvement once we do the next step. Okay. So at this point, I am gonna cut the execution on this one, and if you noticed, we just created the project, so we're still on the folder outside of it. So just to avoid confusion, you should go to your project directory before we execute the next step.
Yeah, let's just open that in code directly.
I have it in code, all right. Don't you worry.
You already do that.
Although I appear to have changed something, and I don't know what.
You commented out the external logins. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's fine. All right.
Okay. We have no hands raised, so
that's good. Okay, I guess we can do that in VS Code as well. Fair enough. All right, so what we're looking to do is add one of Angular Universal's tools for server-side rendering. And we're going to use the Express engine today, since it's based on Node.js server, and it's really easy for us to go ahead and configure additionally without requiring you guys to go into, for example, they have an ASP.NET Core version of that engine, but that would require Visual Studio and .NET Core and stuff like that. So this is just the shortcut, easier way. Plus, we have already snippets prepared, and I'm not changing that right now. Yeah. So what we're going to do is go for ng-add, and I'm picking those out of my history because I can. But for the rest of you, ng-add at ng-universal, which is Angular Universal /Express Engine. And those packages come in like wildcard-engine flavors. So at that same package scope, you can find ASP.NET Core engine, and I think they have a few others.
Yeah, and you can still copy paste this from the README, just FYI.
Yeah.
And go ahead and add it. And while you do this, please, if you're not familiar with server-side rendering as a concept or with server-side rendering in Angular, please raise your hand, and maybe I can expand on this while this is being installed. Right, we actually have quite a few hands.
Okay, so just
all right. So yeah,
explain away.
Absolutely. So because Angular is a single-page application framework, we had a lot of hands go down. All right. So when your application is being delivered to the client, it's basically an app root only, and there isn't a whole lot of content in it, rendered. And that's the point where Angular, then your main application scripts get downloaded, and the application starts bootstrapping, right?
Yep.
And so yeah?
I have your visual right here. What gets delivered to the client is basically
exactly
this.
Yeah. That's what you're seeing is exactly what the client gets delivered before the application starts bootstrapping. And server-side rendering is a way for you to deliver more content to the application by invoking the Angular compiler on the server and actually delivering parts or even the whole HTML for the components that are going to get rendered at certain routes that are being requested by the server. Now, why is this important? Like any real world application, actually, in order to be crawlable by search engine crawlers and so on and so forth, should deliver some content. Like Google recently updated the search engine so it can evaluate ECMAScript version higher than 5. But before, like, and I don't know when that happened, but it was, I think, sometime at the end of last year. Before that, if you have an application running ECMAScript 2015, for example, it wouldn't get evaluated by the crawler. But ideally, what you want to deliver some content to your users, not only because of search engine crawlers, but also because that actually enables better performance or better perceived performance, we should say, for your application to your end users, because they're seeing pixels rendered on the screen even before the application starts bootstrapping. So we're adding server-side rendering to this application. One, because you really want to do that for production level applications, and two, because we're actually going to kill two birds with one stone in this workshop by reusing the server that gets generated, the Express server that gets generated by the Angular CLI, and adding some API endpoints to it so that we don't have to create a separate API project for this workshop. And I see that everything finished installing, so,
Oh, yeah. Can I expand a little bit?
Go ahead, Damien.
Oh, yeah. Because, like you said, the perceived performance is king in terms of actual performance. So what the users are seeing is like a pre-rendered shell of the components that are about to be. So the server-side rendering renders the components and dumps them afterwards very rudely, and then just grabs the HTML and sends it to the client. And then what they're seeing is how the application is about to look like in advance, but the entire Angular application and the background is still bootstrapping and hydrating back those components in pretty much the same time. The difference is just the visual, right? And the visual is actually very key. The Google search bot might be able to run Angular application these days, but there are other search bots that are actually just as important, especially for marketing, maybe even more important. So, for example, Twitter, Facebook, or any social media, when you share a link, they will go ahead and crawl the link that you've shared and try to pick up a preview, right? And that's very important in terms of marketing to be able to control. And server-side rendering gives you control over that.
Why don't you run it so that everyone does this with us? And at the same time, because this is an enterprise level workshop, we want to say server-side rendering may not seem important if you're doing, let's say, a back office application or an internal application that's only going to be consumed inside your organization. But because you're never exposing this and it's not, Damien, go ahead and run it.
All right. Hold on. Let me just show the run. All right. So to run this, because what happened when Angular, when the universal package installed, it created a whole bunch of stuff for us. So it created new commands in our package JSON to run. Those have matching configurations in Angular JSON. We have a new server module that, surprise, surprise, bootstraps the same component as our usual module. And then we also have a server TS, which is basically our Express server handling API. We're going to go look into that in a second. But what we want to do is run out one of our new commands, which is run dev SSR, which is for server-side rendering.
And while this is being executed, for back office applications, it's still important because of what Damien said, the perceived performance of the application, and especially when you have views that are more data heavy, more DOM heavy. Those usually take a little bit longer to initialize, especially if there is a lot of service calls. And so you want to have more pixels initially in order to make this incremental build up inside your application instead of having widescreen going directly to a hydrated view.
Or a loading screen, for that matter. So something interesting happened. It's not as if we didn't expect this, but we're just gonna go ahead and show it. So, like I showed you a few minutes ago, we have our very own Facebook provider, which uses the Facebook SDK, and as you saw, it was running just fine up until now. But what happened? So the server configuration runs off of its own server config. So we're gonna go look into what's happening there. All right. So there's a new tsconfig.server JSON in our project, right? And then it has types And for the types that are used in compile time, it has just Node. Oddly enough, our application was very insistently including Facebook's SDK types so it can compile, but this did not get carried over, which is something we might actually inquire with the Angular team potentially. Like, please carry that over for us. But to make that error go away and have our application compile and run normally, what you're going to do is grab those Facebook SDK types and just add them to the server config. And that should solve our issues.
And this is probably the time for you to let us know whether you are catching up with what Damien is doing. If you're still not up to this point or something is breaking, erroring, can you raise your hand? We have Jeffrey raising a hand, but I think he was raising a hand for the server-side rendering.
And it's gone now.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Well, this didn't error out so far, so my prediction is it's gonna be running.
Probably.
So what's happening is actually a bit more complicated since this runs our normal Angular run, and then it does an additional server build run afterwards. It's actually producing two different outputs, one to render on the server and one to deliver on the client. So what we should be seeing right now is application just working as per usual, right? Right. Let's see if Lighthouse will cooperate with us today. More importantly, the paint. I can guarantee the paint is going to work, but anything else is up for discussion.
We're running in dev mode.
Pretty please, Lighthouse. All right.
So it does show you better results.
It is better. For some reason, Lighthouse just figured out that we don't have a robots txt, which we didn't have before as well, but it didn't complain before. But our performance rating has been bumped up a little bit from 33 to 43. And keep in mind, again, this is all running off of heavily unoptimized build, like a dev build. So it's not gonna be pretty, but I don't know if this is visible. All of the frames captured while running the report, all of them have something visible.
Yeah, keep in mind, we didn't do a whole lot. We just executed an ng-add command, and we actually bumped up the performance index. Yeah, that avoid enormous network payloads. In dev mode, you're going to get that message regardless. Like even
there is no avoiding that with Angular's dev builds. It's a little bit atrocious, but it is what it is.
Yeah. Well, we have to debug somehow, right?
Oh yeah. The source maps on those files are heavy, like really heavy. All right. So
at this point, we should probably run a release build so that we show the difference. But let's keep going for now because.
Oh yeah. In your package, Jason, there are multiple commands. You actually have a new build SSR command, which is gonna do that, and then you have a serve SSR, which you can do afterwards. All right. So I'm gonna go.
Yeah. So that's the error that you need to include the Facebook JS SDK typings into your tsconfig server JSON. So the typings are already included in the root level tsconfig app JSON. Just copy the type and also add it to the server.
Oh yeah. This bad boy right here. And
so the ng-add for the server-side rendering, it just adds the new files. You have already done that. And you're still getting an error? Oh, in the browser. Did you, hold on, in your app module, do you leave the Facebook authentication uncommented? Yeah, or commented out. We're not gonna get this set up today because we can actually run the whole workshop on setting up the authentication providers, but it's not the goal that we have today.
Getting a Facebook developer key these days is actually like an experience on its own.
Oh yeah, and that's another thing. If you have the server running and you make changes, at some point it may actually give unexpected results.
I don't think it actually refreshes when you make changes to tsconfig files.
Yeah, so just stop it.
None of the Angular builds do. Yeah. All right. At this point, I am just going to commit our awesome performance improvement, even though it wasn't much. It is.
You say it wasn't much, but just add one thing and you get a boost.
33 to 43. What's that in percentages?
I'm 33.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. At this point, we should grab our snippets. So, if I can turn your attention to the GitHub repository, you're gonna find a VS Code folder with a snippets file. So those are pre-configured snippets for VS Code, which I love dearly. And I am gonna abuse the hell out of those since we hate typing real time, right? So
it's just gonna take a lot of time.
It's just gonna take an endless amount of time to get everything up and running, which is no bueno. So what you want to do is go Control Shift and P in VS Code to bring up the commands, or I suppose Command Shift and P on Macs, and type snippets or snip. That should be enough. And you should see Configure User Snippets option. Everyone following up? When you select the Configure User Snippets option, there's a new global snippets, which we don't care for. And what we are interested in is new snippets for the project. Yeah, okay. I went to see the chat. That was a mistake. All right. So we're going for new snippets for the project. And we just have to pick a name. The name is of no consequence at all. I just go with workshop since I've been naming those for a while now like that while doing test runs. But the name is not of importance as long as it's within the project. So what this will do is actually create a new file and the same folder structure under .vs code and some file named however you like with .code snippets extension, which is the important bit. And here is a lot of documentation, descriptions, how you can enter snippets. What we're gonna do is use the ones that I've already done. So from the repository, just grab the raw file out of GitHub and copy paste it within your project. And save. That's it. So again, the raw file from GitHub, and just take the entirety of the content and copy and paste it in your new snippets file. And you should see something like this with a whole bunch of templates ready for us to enjoy. All right.
Appline asks you to repeat. Oh, Oleg is not in VS Code.
Oh, that's gonna be really hard to replicate without VS Code, because those snippets are VS Code specific. I'm gonna repeat. All right. So Command Shift and P or Control Shift and P inside VS Code, you're looking for snip, and it should give you Configure User Snippets. And under that, you have a new snippet for file, for the project. You pick that and name it however you like, and it's going to give you a new file. And within that file, you copy and paste the contents over from the GitHub repo.
I'm gonna put a link just in case.
Oh yeah, you can put a direct link to the file itself.
I'm gonna put a link to the raw content.
Oh, even better.
Yeah. Here it is.
Yep. Command-Shift-P on Mac. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. There is no hands anymore. By the way,
That's good.
whoever is not on VS Code, I was going to say we can push some code to the repository so you can copy paste from there. Damien, do you want me to do that while you explain?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, at that point, we're going to go ahead and run one additional command in the terminal before we start using the snippets for some code. So we've decided that we're going to do like a very basic resemblance of backend API, and we're going to build that off of some Northwind OData service. So we just have like a basic amount of data to work with. And since we're going to be making a request, and I like the fetch API, which is not available on Node, we're going to install one more package in our project. And it's actually available as a copy-paste command in the README as well, I believe. What we're looking for is to install node fetch. And I'm going to go ahead and run that. Excellent. This is a fresh project, and it's already like running 2 vulnerabilities. That is,
and we're on latest package versions for most of these.
Everything is like 11 released last week or yesterday something. That is just the NPM ecosystem for you. It's all right. I am willing to bet most of those are Webpack dependencies somewhere in the dev chain, which is not really affecting our application all that much.
Mm-hmm.
So that should be good. All right. Did everyone install node fetch? Anyone still not there yet? Because we're jumping to the server TS file to have a look-see.
Damien, what are we going to do in the server TS?
We're going to be adding some additional API to what it already has. Because it has some. So this is the server TS file that Angular Universal delivered for us. And it's an Express backend. If anyone's familiar with Express.js, this is going to look very like familiar. Duh. So what we have pre-set up by the Angular Universal package is a single GET request for something with .somethings or files with extensions that goes to a static server. So those are all our assets like images and CSS files and stuff like that. And then we have a general route that is just a wildcard, and it goes to render through the Universal engine. And you can see that it does providers and stuff like that. So this is what actually renders our components on the backend. And what we want to do is sort of use this Express engine to add some data API to our application. So what we're going to do is go ahead and add a region just before the generic GET that consumes every request ever. So as we're working with data that's from Northwind orders, I'm just gonna say that this is the orders region, and I'm also gonna end it. And we're gonna pull up our first snippet, which should be orders data. As long the second you save that snippet file, every snippet inside becomes instantly available in VS Code. Just FYI, if this is not showing up, then something's wrong with your snippet files. So we're gonna go ahead and pick the orders data. So what this is.
If for some reason you don't see the snippet, can you raise your hand?
Yeah. All right. So this is nothing too complicated. We're using our favorite node fetch API and just grabbing a Northwind data service with the orders. And I'm actually going to go ahead and show you guys what it has inside. So as per the OData format, it's very common to have like the array returned inside of an object because they usually deliver some additional metadata properties, and then the value that we're actually interested in, or the actual array of records for the orders, is in a separate property, just FYI, because that's going to be important in a little bit. So that's why we have a store variable. That's basically so we don't spam the the preview OData service all the time. So we cache in that response, and as long as we have it, we're going to use it. And plus, that service is read-only, so we wouldn't be able to perform CRUD operations, so adding, deleting, updating stuff within the service. So we're going to do it on our cached store, or if you want to imagine it like that, it's our in-memory database. All right.
And keep in mind, like your API being inside your server-side code in the application is probably not the best practice, but your server can be a proxy to another API that you have. This is exactly what we're showing. And in this case, if it's a proxy, you probably want to do some server-side caching on this end as well. And that's why we created a store and a cache. But Damien, why is this order not available?
Because we haven't defined it, of course. Do we have that in the GitHub repo as a snippet? No, we do not. Nope. All right. So we need an order as a model. So that would be an interface. So ng, and we're going to generate that, of course. Generate nggi. It's right here in the corner, guys, in the bottom right. And we're going to go and call it inside the models folder and call it an order. So models/order. Go ahead and run that. Or it's all like you can just create a folder and a file. It's not that far off, in all honesty, but still. All right, and now we should be able to import that model inside our server TS.
You also have a snippet for that.
I know. I'm going there. And of course, we want to describe that data. And we have a snippet for that as well. We have a model snippet that's model-orders. And that should expand to almost full description of what the OData service will give you. But we're not going to deal with too many of the other properties. So that should be enough for now.
By the way, I was wondering whether my cats are going to get interested in this workshop.
Oh.
They just did. Right.
All right. Okay, so I'm hoping that everyone's all caught up. So at this point, we have some function that caches some data, and we have a model describing the data. And now it's time to write up a little bit of REST API methods for us. And as you expect, we have snippets for that as well, because duh. What you're looking for as a trigger for those snippets for now are get-delete, which should show up as server API for get and delete, since they're pretty similar in terms of signature. And that will expand to some options that you can tap through. So you can select between the two methods we're doing. Let's start with get, for example. So we're going to do the get method, and you can tap to the next stop on the snippet, and that's the result we're going to return. For get, we're going to return JSON result, so this is fine. And for the actual returning thing, it's the data, which is also fine. And the last tap stop should send you right here in the argument behind orders, which we don't need since those are all of the orders. So we're going to delete that one. All good? Did everyone get that? Because that was just the get method and it's done. This is it. All right. So what do we do next? Let's do another get method, but this time with the actual API for like getting a singular record, since why not? So again, we're gonna pick get, and the rest of those are the same, except this time we're gonna rename the data to an order, and we're gonna leave the parameter up on top. Whoop. Stay right there. So what do we need? We need our ID parameter, which is gonna come up. We'll have to parse it since everything Express gives you a string, but we're gonna grab it from the request params.id. And parse requires a base of 10. And if I can type const, we're gonna go ahead and look for our order, which is in data, the value, again, like we've seen in the OData format, the value is the actual array that we're looking for. And we're gonna go ahead and find inside that array, and we're gonna be looking for something that has an order ID that's equal to the ID from the GET request. And if we're really thorough, we can go ahead and actually check if such order exists. So if there's no order, we would actually return a 404 status. Take Constantine.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's fine. Yeah. I was wondering if I should have put an explicit return on those, but they should still work just fine as they are.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have ways to get data. How about a way to add data? So post. Again, post and put are very similar in terms of signature, so those share a snippet as well. So post-put is the snippet you're looking for. Pick post. The order is fine. The status code for post, since it's a creation, should be 201. So that's HTTP created. Is anyone falling behind? Let me know if I'm going too fast. All right, so for the order, we have a little bit of a difference. So we have an additional handler attached for Express to give us a JSON. Otherwise, the body wouldn't actually contain anything. But once we have the JSON parse, the body would be an actual order that's submitted to be added. So I'm actually going to rename this to, no, it's fine. It's fine as an order. What do we need for the order? So it's a new order. So we would have to, I was wondering what's happening. I need to type that out. All right. So we're going to give it some random new ID. In this case, I'm lazy. So the length +1. Obviously, this would be something your database or something else would give you, not something you generate on the hand, but we're just emulating an actual API at this point. And to actually add it, we're going to go ahead and push it, not pop, push it to our data. And if you want to be really fancy about it, we're also going to return it with the status creation. So API that sends the updated order can pick it right back up with the updated ID. Constantine, is anything interesting happening in chat?
Yeah. We have Chelsea get an error on trying to add the server methods. I'm trying to figure out why.
Okay. I'm going to soldier on for now and see how that's going.
Keep going. I'm going to try to determine what's happening.
All right. So that's our...
Yeah, keep going. Sorry.
You can reply directly, I think. All right. So we have get data, add data. Let's update data. So that would be a put method. So this time, again, post put snippet. This time go with put. The order that's submitted with our request body is actually now an updated order that we're supposed to handle. And I can't type anymore. And for the update, it's usually going to be a 200 or 204 in terms of status. So to find the order that we're supposed to update, we're going to go ahead and poke into our data array and, of course, find, not filter, find the order with an ID that's identical. I really should have put that typing within the snippet. And again, if such order doesn't exist, this is where you would usually, since by REST API definitions, put is also supposed to be able to create, besides updating, this is where you would be creating a new instance and adding it to a data. And so you would be returning a 201, but we're not going to be using that API for those purposes. So I'm just going to return a status of 404. And should such order exist, I'm going to go slightly lazy again and just assign the order we just found and assign it the updated order. So all of the values will be updated. And we're getting close now. We have one last method, so we can add data, we can get data, we can update data, and now we just need a delete. So the get delete snippet is your next target, and pick delete this time. And since delete doesn't really return data, go ahead with status and 204, no content. And we're actually going to keep the ID this time and quite lazily go back to our get with ID and grab that one in and bring it down. So what we're looking for is for the index of the item to delete. So we're going to go with find index this time. Very similar to what we've been doing so far. And find something with order ID that matches what we sent. If such a thing doesn't exist, should I go type of undefined or just equals undefined? Both should work just fine for our causes. So if we're trying to delete something that doesn't exist, obviously 404. Alternatively, we're gonna splice that item straight out of the data source. So from that index, we're gonna remove one item and go ahead with 204. And that should be our orders API fairly done and functional.
Well, maybe let's test it out.
Sure. I'm in the browser, so I can't really test too many of those. But let's say, ooh, give me that. We should have /API/orders, and my browser remembers that because I've already had it running before. Oh, buddy. Oh, that's rough. Hello. Oh. Really? Did I not import fetch? I didn't. Oh boy. And we installed node fetch for that very reason. This is also really deceiving because it's picking up the browser API for fetch. And it's going like, yeah, sure, this works. Except we're on the node
Except
backend.
it doesn't.
Except it doesn't. And we were supposed to import that. So, again, we've missed that totally. But go ahead and import fetch from node fetch.
Doug has a very good point that index will be -1 if not found. It's not going to be undefined.
True that. Very true.
It's as if you've been doing JavaScript for 10 years.
And maybe we get a response now? Thank you. So yeah, it's no surprise, basically the same data as the OData service provides. So we just cached it and proxied it in. But hey, we can do stuff with this now. So I'm gonna go ahead and commit this one in. Should I ask for hands to raise?
Yeah, how are you guys doing? If you can follow up,
I go back to the delete method. Okay, hold on. I can do that. There's a snippet for you. The snippet is get-delete that will expand.
Yeah, just you wrote the body because so.
Yeah. Two tips. Please go away. You're so helpful, but not always.
Damian, I love how it never gets dark on your end.
Yeah, I know.
All right.
It's actually pitch black outside, but hey.
Yeah, I see that there is no other hands raised, so maybe let's add some UI to consume this data and to display it in the application.
Yep. Although we have a few more additions to go before that, but hey, we're getting there.
Oh, you mean we need a service on our end, right?
Uh-huh.
And in the client-side app.
So yeah, we've set up some data from the backend, and now we need the client application to consume that. So we're going to go ahead and throw a service for that as well. So that would be just straight up generated through the Angular CLI. So ng-generate s stands for service. And we're going to go in services folder and call the service orders, or just order. Orders. I like it better.
Should be orders because it has endpoints for orders.
Yep. This should give you a new folder inside your project called services and a new service called order service. And what we need to bring in this is an HTTP client. So we're going to go ahead and inject a variable named HTTP and type it as HTTP client. And if Angular is so kind, it would actually auto-import as well. Thank you.
Export fetch was not found in node fetch.
Oh, if you're exporting it as an alias, like a wildcard s something, that's not going to work since it's a default export on their end, like a ECMAScript module default export. So it should be like import fetch directly from node fetch. All right.
So you shouldn't have a curly.
Yeah. And one additional thing we should do is in our environment, you have environment files for development and production. Always a good idea to put your service endpoints that you consume in some sort of configuration. So I'm going to call this the orders endpoint, and it's HTTP localhost 420/API/orders. I could have copied that from the browser, but it's fine because we're going to use that in a little bit. Okay, so we have a service. Let's add some methods that consume the backend API. Again, we have snippets for this because we're not cruel. And it's actually a multi-selection snippet, so we're going to use it for all methods. It's called service-method, like this. And it should expand to something that will do all of the work for us. So we're going to go ahead and create like the first get method. So this is get, and then you tab through. And of course, this is also get. And this would actually return an orders array, since we're going to take the entirety of this. And we're going to skip a parameter for now.
I was wondering
now,
whether you're going to remember this. It
what?
actually doesn't return an orders array.
Did it not?
Think about it.
Oh, since it's the variable... No, we're going to fix that.
Yeah.
It's here that it's not... Yes.
Mm-hmm.
The service that we're going to call through actually returns an object that has value, I think. Was it value?
Yes, value.
And value has order. All right. So let's just first deal with all the missing imports that we need. So observable for XJS, our module, the environment. Always import from environment. Never import from production. That's something Angular replaces on build time. Just FYI. We need the catcher operator. Weird suggestion, VS Code, thank you. And we have a handler that we'll deal with in a little bit. For now, just leave it auto-generate, let Visual Studio auto-generate that. But do change the type to observable, if any. And we're going to leave that for now. We have other plans for it. Oh yeah, and I should say, this is get all the orders. And since we want for this to actually return the array that we care for in the data, we're also going to map this out to the value array. Was the URL in the environment going a bit too fast? I'm sorry. Yeah. The URL is in the environment. Boy. Kid, just tooltips galore. Everything hoverable is insane. Yeah. In the environment, I called it orders endpoint since that's what the snippets are configured for. If you name it differently, just keep in mind when you plop in the snippet that you're going to have to change that. But IntelliSense will help. I'm going to do a quick burst of the other getter. That's just a singular order, which is get, order. That's fine. Although this time we want to pick an ID as a parameter. And what we're going to do with this guy is go ahead and use a template string and pass in the segment with our ID. So that will be get a singular order. All right.
Chris says,
yeah,
behind on the imports. So maybe show where most of the stuff is imported from. So observable is RxJS. The catcher map are operators, again from RxJS. And the environment should the first auto suggest should be environment.
Mm-hmm. VS Code should be good enough resolving those. Although, why it resolved source like that instead of going up is beyond me. That is a weird relative path on it. All right. Shall we? So guys, those are ordered in basically in the way we can add them. So if we jump to add, the next option on the HTTP methods is post, and you're going to return an order, and you're going to take an order. So post.
By the way, get on your order also gets of an object of value that is order.
It should not.
Shouldn't it?
No, the singular get method is supposed to return a singular discovered.
Oh, right.
We got that from the API. It should be fine.
I'll look.
So
in
for the
this.
post, just pass in
That's
the
correct.
order. Yep.
You know what? Maybe we should have changed the get API orders to return a JSON of data.value instead of just data. But keep going.
I know.
We already implemented it. Yeah.
The only reason we kept that was because at one point you can go ahead in the environment and just put in the actual OData service there, and everything should still work, at least for getting data.
Yep.
That was the point that we tried to get across.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we have two getters and an add. We'll do an update next, which is the next option in line, which is a put method. Put method also returns the order, and we also take an order and pass it in. Those should be going real fast. And then the last one is just delete. You tab in, and you should get the last option, which is delete. And this one actually doesn't return anything. So void. And it takes an ID. And it's actually really similar to the getter with ID. So copy over once again. And you need... Oh, wait. I did a massive whoopsie. Did somebody caught on that? I forgot to template the endpoint. This was going to get real wrong real fast.
Yeah, we can copy paste it. No, once Damien is done, we're just gonna copy paste it here. Actually, Damien, keep going. I committed some code to the original repository, so I should be able to actually send a snippet from there.
That API is done though. Like we have all of the corresponding methods in. So I'm gonna go ahead and commit that. Okay, you're pasting in. All right. Yeah, because we're gonna end up stranded for time at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, cheating is allowed at this point. Okay, so let's throw in a component to consume that service in data. So we're gonna go once again to ng-generate component ng-gc. Sounds suspiciously like ngc. And we're gonna call this. We're gonna call this orders v1 because we're gonna have an orders v2, and we're gonna give it. Can I resize? Oh, I can resize this. Oh, nice. We're gonna have to specify a module since we have more than one module in our application, and the Angular CLI is gonna ask for that anyway.
You can just do module equals app.
True that.
Yeah.
True that. All right. Yeah. Module equals app. Fair enough. Yep, that worked just fine. So one thing we're missing, this did register as declaration in our main module, but it didn't do anything in the routing, and I'm so not in for that. So I'm going to go ahead and duplicate one of the other paths and go call it orders view1 and bring in this component so we can actually see it in the UI. Let's see if our UI is still working. Oh yeah, all right. So order v1 works. Unsurprisingly, there's nothing inside. So in our newly generated component TS, we're gonna go ahead and inject our order service. And we're also going to define a public array of orders. And on the component in it, we're going to ask our service for data. So get orders and subscribe to that. And once our data is returned, we're going to go and say that the data orders array that we have in our component is now what the service returned. Oh, how did I put an underscore subscribe?
Yeah, we can do an ASIC pipe here. Just.
Oh, true.
So we can assign get orders directly as to an observable public, and then just proceed with the template. No, once you write the template, maybe we can show the difference then.
Yeah, basically you're going to type out this as an observable and assign it directly, which is fine. All right. So this doesn't have anything. And if you noticed in our data, we have a lot of entries with quite a bit of data or data properties on them. So it made sense to us, at least, to go and use that in a table. So let's try that one out. So I'm going to go ahead and create a table. And for the table, we need headers. So those are table header elements. And since I don't want to particularly type out all the data right now, I'm just gonna go and ng-for those out of the data source itself. And because I need the actual keys, I'm gonna call this a pair of, was it orders? It's orders. I'm gonna grab the first one, which may or may not exist yet, and pipe it to a key value pipe. So this will actually give me the first order broken down into key value pairs. The key value pipe is built into Angular, if you're wondering. And for the headers, we're going to go ahead and say, put in the keys of each property on the object. Okay. We also need to show our data somehow. So rows, so tr. And those are going to be very similar, so I will copy paste. Except we're gonna spin on all of the orders this time. Hello. And for the cells, we'll need to create a few of them. So very similar to the key value pairs, We'll take the order for the current row and split it in key value pairs. And within the cell, we're going to display the property value. So if all said and done, this should actually give us a table. It's not going to be pretty, but it'll give us a table, hopefully. Except,
just refresh.
Yeah, it's just the dev run on server-side rendering is somewhat temperamental. Sometimes it auto-refreshes, but sometimes it doesn't. Beats me. All right, so we've got this. It's a table. It's not great for any measure. Let's try to improve it just a little bit. For example, we really dislike those their ISO date strings that come in from the data, and they're really hard to read in their current state. So what we can do is, for example, pick the order date column, and you can go ahead and copy the header because we're going to use that, and run it through a date pipe to format it a little bit better. So,
Damien, I think we should speed things up a little bit.
Okay.
So we're...
Yeah, that's fine. I'll move what we currently had into a template. And add a new span. And check if the current property key is equal to
order date.
Order date. Else, and I should have named the default. The template needs to be set as a template variable, else go into default. Now, Angular complains for some reason for this because it can figure out what the type of the property key is since they're all genericed out. And I haven't found a way to tell the key value pipe what types it's dealing with, even though it's acutely aware what the orders are. But hey, disregard this warning because everything will work out just fine. As long as SSR cooperates. Come on, buddy. Whoa, really? It hasn't errored out. It hasn't done anything. I am lost. Buddy. And I guess this is about as much as SSR will do for us.
I can just stop it and run it again.
Yep, that's exactly what I'm doing, because it just died. So not helpful, SSR.
It's very helpful. It's just,
Oh yeah, come to think of it, up until, what, Angular 9 or 10, there wasn't a dev run for this at all. Like, you couldn't run it in dev mode and develop at the same time with refresh.
Right, and in order for it to be fast, it cannot recompile the entire main TS. So sometimes, stuff like this happens.
Brandon, yep. We're gonna get there. Oh yeah. I should have actually said that we want something in that template. Thank you very much. Yep. We're gonna run into the date pipe. And sure, we can say that we want short, or we can go even fancier than that in a second, as long as my site actually decides to load. Okay. So date short. Please cooperate. Are we all destroying the old data service? Is that what's happening? Because that might be something we do. Oh God.
No, there isn't that many requests. I mean, we have.
I hope not.
Nah. We have 50 people running, a request to that service.
I really hope not.
Yeah.
But yeah, my thing is really not really cooperating today. Really? Oh, there you go.
Fine. It's fine.
Okay. So yeah,
Right.
as Brandon suggested, we can do different formats on this, but we can go more specific than that format for date short. So we can go like month, which is like spell out the whole month, and say date, say the year. We can go give me the time, the hours, and the minutes, and AM, PM, for example. That sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm just not gonna rely on this. Like, come on.
As Duff is saying, like you're accessing orders of 0, where you actually have an async request to the orders, so you can get an error there.
It shouldn't in theory, because order 0 before the data has arrived is just undefined, right? And apparently the key value pipe just handles it like a champ. But yeah, you can probably fall back on that one. Okay, so this is really unwieldy. Like, it's massive because there are about 200 records in this, and there's no way to force the table to go into something decent in UI. So I'm actually gonna wrap it in a div and give it a sum class that's, say, table wrapper, and just move the entire table inside the div. And we're going to define a table wrapper class and give it like a height of 80% and overflow auto, which should give us a much more decent table to work with. Okay. Yay, we can scroll now. And I have my UI not overtaken by that grid. Okay. So the last thing we're going to try to do with this is throw in a button. And on click, we're going to call a not yet existing method saying add new. And we're going to go ahead and copy that name and go and define it in our component. And for this, we're going to need a new order. And I'm going to cheat a little bit here.
George is right. You can just host, you can add height and overflow to the host without the development.
True that. I accept that. But I'm not going to go back and change it though. But yeah, you can just replace this entire thing with host. And it should work just as well.
Okay, keep going. I'm gonna resolve the next one.
Yep.
The pipe key value cannot be found. So key
That is
value comes
essentially impossible.
from Angular core, right?
Yeah, it should be in common.
Yeah.
All right, I'm gonna spell out a few properties. Okay, so customer would be ng-conf, and then, I don't know, shipping country. I'm entering Bulgaria because I'm biased. And shipping city would be Sofia, and the order date would be right about now. Sonia date. Semicolon, really? And then we can send this to our service. We can say add order. And since the add operation actually returns the updated order back to us, if we want to grab that and add this to our cached current orders array without making a new request when we subscribe, we can just go ahead and say this orders push whatever is returned, assuming it's successful. Otherwise, it wouldn't really go to that handler at all. Oh, it's trying to refresh. Oh boy, is that a good sign? Nope. Nope. It used to work so good today when we tried it. I am officially giving up on this. All right, so we have a bunch of orders, and then we slap a new one. Something obviously happened because the table sort of shifted. So maybe there's something at the end, hopefully. Oh yeah, there we go. So we got a new entry that's not really filled in because we don't have all the properties in it because we were lazy, but that's fine. So the columns don't really match right now because we're rendering them just in order, but 201 is the new ID we created since we had 200 records, and it went on just fine.
Yeah. And Damian, yes, you should please commit. I am not sure why the common module wouldn't resolve correctly.
It should be already included like everywhere. Like the browser module brings in the common module with it, and I believe the forms module does as well. So there should be little chance of not being able to resolve ng for some of the basic pipes.
Anyways, if it still doesn't resolve properly, maybe you can try to include it in the app module. But my guess would be try rebuilding the SSR because yeah, that's with the SSR sometimes acting up.
Yeah, because it does some caching here and there, and it sometimes doesn't refresh quite as good as you would want it to. For the most part, it's decent. All right.
So, Damien, I suggest go to the fancy components now.
Yep. All right.
We saw what an ugly view looks like.
Yeah, it's working, but it's not pretty, and it's gonna take a whole lot more than that to get it somewhere. So naturally, we're gonna offer you something that's ready to go. Okay, so again, we're gonna generate a component, although this time we're gonna generate it out of our own schematics package. So that happens the same way ng-generate, except at this point you don't specify generate component, but you specify the name of the schematics package that you want to use. So @ignite UI, Angular schematics, and either component, if I can type, or just the shortcut C. Very similar to ng-gc, except you give it a schematics package to use. And what this is gonna do is jump into the options of our own schematic. And we do prompts all the way because we have way too many components to expose through singular commands for all of them. So as you can see, we can jump to add a component, and then we have grids and lists, we have charts, maps, gauges, data entry. We have interesting layouts, like we have a doc manager that we may or may not get to today. So we were doing a table, so the most reasonable thing to do is go into grids and lists, grab a grid, and we want a few features on it. So go ahead and grab a custom grid. Call it orders. Oh wait, I should have committed this one. So my history is clear. So we named the component orders, and now we know we're gonna create Ignite UI for Angular grid, and we have some options that we can pre-configure out of the box. So those are selected with space, as it says in the hint, and you can move out with arrows. So I want sorting, I want filtering, since we're doing editing, I want row editing, and then I want row selection, because why not? Paging, sure. And then we can do, honestly, all the column features. Column pinning, column moving, column hiding. And we're gonna go ahead and hit complete. And skip the trial package. And we don't actually need the serve right now, since SSR is already running, so I'm gonna interrupt that one. So, what happened? We got a new component that actually got registered, because we do that. It got declared in our main module, but also it got declared as a path in our routing module. So this should pop up as soon as SSR decides to refresh or something. There you go. And there we go. Okay, so that popped up real quick. So we have a grid that's capable of quite a few things. So it has built-in paging, sorting, filtering, as you would expect. We have a bunch of interesting filters. So, for example, I don't know, do we have Bulgaria? Nope.
Yeah.
Hey, but we have Canada, for example. Or the USA. So we can filter and apply multiple filters, and we can pin many columns in one area, or just a few. And then we have a separate area that's scrollable. You can also just drag and drop columns around, or just show them and hide them. Okay, so that came out pre-configured, but it also came out with its own local data, because we sort of give you that so you can have something to view when you run it first. But we don't need that local data right now. What we want to use is our data service. And what we're gonna do is actually grab all of this code from the component we just created with the simple HTML table and plop it right here. And of course, we're gonna have to deal with some imports that are non-existent right now. So, as per usual, bring in the model and the service. Now our data source is named orders, which no longer corresponds to what we had before. So this is orders. And I believe I deleted a title of some sort. That may or may not be used. We're about to find out. Okay, so of course our data schema changed completely, and that's something that I don't particularly feel like rewriting right now. So we're just gonna delete the entire section of columns because we have a snippet for that. And it should come up as grid-columns and just plop it right in. So what this will do, we have a bunch of columns that are defined. Some of them are already pinned. Some of them are movable, editable, sortable. We can specify each of those per column. We also have a single column that's just not tied to any data field. It's just like a computed field. In this case, we're showing if the order has a ship date, sort of like as a visual confirmation for each order as it has it shipped yet, right? So this is what you should end up with. Oh, and I forgot to mention, since we're doing API for updating, this also has built-in row editing, which we can take advantage of with just a few events in a second. All right. Yep. Somebody said that we should change the primary key. Very true. Also, there's a title on the toolbar below that says employees, which is obviously supposed to say orders now, since we changed the entire thing. Constantine, we should have used the Northwind employees table. It would have been a straight up replacement.
That is right.
Just saying.
Well, we decided to make it difficult.
Yes.
Okay. I have it all working on my end.
Alrighty. Okay, I'm just gonna throw in one last finishing touch on the UI for the grid. Since we're doing a whole bunch of editing, I'm gonna add like a freebie UI for editing. So in your app module, you would need an IGX action strip module. I'm gonna just plop that in the chat for everyone to copy paste. Add that to the imports in your app module. And what that will give us is access to an action strip that integrates within the grid. So inside the IGX grid, create an action strip component that's really Angular. Yeah. It's not really cooperating with me today. Yeah, buddy. IGX action strip. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
Very helpful. Very helpful. All right. And within the action strip, we can just say IGX grid editing actions. And we can also say that we want the add row feature enabled as well. And I'm just gonna resort to constantly refreshing my application. Or that may have been the end of the SSR run. Oh boy, not now, come on. I can just plop this one into chat as well if you want me to.
Funny thing, it loads just fine on my end. That's until I share my screen.
You know what? I've had this with Zoom before. Like, sharing screen just takes a massive toll on the system entirely. in all seriousness, yeah. So what this should give us is something like this. So we have a floating UI that can help us delete records, edit records, or add new records. Okay? So now we just need a few handlers to hook this up. And actually, I'm gonna go ahead and plug this one in. Infragistics.com, in our documentation, you can just go right ahead inside editing and I guess row add, and you'll have the entire thing spelled out, like everything in code done, which is pretty much what we're gonna do right now. All right, so on the grid component, which is looking very unpleasant right now, so I'm gonna reformat a little bit because this is not readable at all. We're gonna hook up a bunch of events. So we have on row edit.
I think you can just do one. Just do the row add.
Okay. Oh yeah, because I already have a method for it. See, that's add new. Fair enough. The only difference is that this would take a different event. This would be an iRow data event args. And we should no longer need this. So that's what's going to be left with the add method. And assuming nothing blows up, coolio. All right, so I want a new record with customer ID something, because, yeah, I can't edit the primary key, which is expected. Ooh, I forgot to return the data back to the grid. That's going to be a little bit unpleasant, but I'm going to show you the network request, I guess. Ship country, Bulgaria, and that should be good enough. And then something pops up and says row added, and it's right here down the grid. And we have a 201 created post request to our service. Okay, and then I guess just due to time, we're gonna skip this, but you get the point. You have on row deleted and on row edit. Oh no, it's just row edit this time. We're renaming our events. It's happening slowly but surely. So yeah, 2 more events and you have a fully functional CRUD service in UI. Okay, Konstantin, I'm gonna go ahead and plop the next component, if you don't mind.
Yeah, go ahead.
How's everyone following along? Is it too fast, too slow? Raise your hands. Tell us if you're behind. All right.
Doesn't seem like anyone is behind at this point.
Okay, that's great. So we're going to go ahead and run the same generate command as we did before. So this time we're going to pick a different component, because why not? So we're going to take, this time we're going to go ahead and take a chart. And we have our pick between a category chart and a financial chart, we're going to take a category chart and say, what was this? Stocks? Company stocks?
Yep.
Company stocks. And again, we're going to complete this. And it's actually going to run an install this time, since the charts are a separate package within the IgniteY product. And it's also going to error out, which is expected, and I'm going to show you why. It's also erroring out because the component is added, but the install hasn't finished. Oh, this is throwing the dev run for a loop.
I was going to say you should probably kill the
It's fine.
SSR.
It's fine. Until it's not. Let's see what it does.
I killed it on my end.
I am brave. Also, I think I forgot to commit the grid. I did.
Yeah.
I am sorry. But yeah. So what happened is another route got added with another component that has a chart in it. And something interesting happened this time. It doesn't work. Now it's saying that it can't find an HTML element, which is not that unreasonable of an ask for SSR, since it extends HTML element. Apparently the chart uses some custom web component in there, and it's not that unreasonable to find a library that's going to do that to you, right? So what we're missing is a shim. Because as the Angular SSR guidelines say, use anything else, and if all else fails, shim. So to make the chart actually compile and provide this, I'm going to make a new file on the root level of the project. If only Visual Studio made that any easier. And I'm going to call it server shims TypeScript. And we actually have a snippet for that if it picks up. Yep. Shims. Oh. Constantine?
Yeah?
What did you make for the dist folder? Oh, in the environment. Okay.
Yeah. We forgot to add the environment variable for that.
Okay. I hope everyone's following. I'm gonna spell it out. What was it? Dist?
Dist folder.
Folder.
Mm-hmm.
Which is basically /dist/ project name
/browser.
Yep. And my project name is what this is leading to is your dist folder, and it will be containing one folder, which is your project name, browser, index.html. This is where we're going. Since for the shim to work, we're using Domino, and Domino needs an HTML template file to create a fake window or fake document, fake mux elements for you. And
by the way,
what we're lacking. Yep.
Don't forget to install Domino.
Domino is actually installed, by the way. You can specify it as an explicit dependency, but some of the SSR packages already bring it in.
Okay.
So this will work out of the box, although you're correct. You should probably install it just so you can have it as an explicit dependency. Yeah. I'll do it. It's already... See? Angular Platform Server already brings in Domino.
Mm-hmm.
It's here. But as you say, I'll just throw it in. And what we were missing for the shims was HTML element. And we want to take that from the window that Domino created as HTML element. Slight caveat with that. It says that property element is not defined on type window. And when you go ahead and look at what Domino does, okay. Yeah, this is totally the Zoom sharing. Oh boy. Really? All right, I'm gonna give up. Wait, no IntelliSense as well? Okay. Visual Studio, so not cool. I'm gonna give you just the solution. So what Domino is using is the actual window definition, the window type that TypeScript keeps in the DOM library definitions. Except the window is not the window, because window is actually defined as window type plus a whole bunch of things, including HTML element, that are not included in the base type. So that's why we have to typecast that as well. And SSR went very down. That's fine.
Did you import the shim?
Nope. Thank you, Konstantin. It is late. So yeah, the reason we're importing the shim, and this has to be inside a module rather than just plopping that code inside server TS, is because of this import, the app server module. And because of the way those TypeScript files get transpiled to JavaScript, whether that is something to do with the Webpack plugins underneath, all of the imports and exports get moved up. So even if I try to patch something before I import the app server module, which will bring in all of the library modules with it and error out if I haven't patched something, it's not going to work if I just put in code here. But it will if I just import, and you can actually do this on top, which is probably better for the best, just like Zone.js does, because that's how those are ordered, and just take in nope. Oh wait, a dot. Server shims. And now we should be able to run this.
If it all compiles, just commit before adding the additional service.
Yeah, I'm stopping here. At the end of it all, we're gonna, I guess in a different branch in the same repository we linked for GitHub, we're just gonna publish the whole thing as an end result.
Show the shims file, and inside the snippets there is shims.
Yes.
So the only thing that the snippets doesn't contain is the
last line,
global HTML define, and also the typing of the window.
Yes. This. Nope. I have no more power in my machine to even show the snippet. No, seriously. Look. It's like thinking about it, but it's not. At this point, I don't even dare run any performance measurements on this machine because it's gonna go really bad. Okay, so our app has risen. We have some grid, and thankfully we have some chart. All right, there we go. That worked. Of course, the chart is with hard-coded data right now, but we're gonna change that in just a sec. Yep. Please commit absolutely everything. Thank you. Okay. So we need data for the chart, and we're going to keep it super lazy again. We have, what was it? Company. Oh, God. Please, snippets. At this point, I'm considering just rebooting my entire Visual Studio.
At this point, the RAM cache is probably busting already.
Yep. I'm just gonna go and reboot the whole thing. Again, I can just always go into the snippets and cheat my way into this and just find out what I'm needing. It's company's data, as predicted. Company's data, there you go, thank you. So the entire snippet should plop down a whole bunch of data. So again, we're using a similar approach to the orders, a store, a fetch from Northwind, this time Northwind customers, and one addition, we need Faker, which is a data mocking tool. So we're gonna go npm I Faker. And we can probably put this in the def dependencies. We're gonna go ahead on top and import Faker. Sadly, it does not have a default export, so it will be as an alias. And the last thing we're lacking is a customer model. So that would be another interface to generate. So ng-generate I and models customer. And within this, we also can delete this because we have a snippet, and it should be models customer. And going back to the server API, we should be able to import that one. All good? Okay. I'm going to commit this one as well. Konstantin, did we do a snippet for the data service for this? Or did we not?
That's a good question. Let me check.
We might not have. Oh well. ng-generate a service and services for customers. Custom customers.
Mm-hmm.
And just like the order service, absolutely identical. And you can probably just copy and paste. But I'm gonna type it out real quick. We're going to take in an HTTP client, and let's grab this guy.
Did you install Faker, by the way?
Yes, I did.
Okay. So
Yes, I did.
why my thing doesn't work, and I didn't install it.
Did you import it as an alias?
It's already imported by the snippet. Oh, yeah, but I don't have an import.
Okay. All right. I'm going back to the service. Was that OData service the same way as the other one? Was it still an object with value?
Yes.
Customer array.
Do you want some snippets?
Yes, please.
So
I would so love snippets.
let me give you, yeah.
Although you can push them.
See if you can copy this from chat.
Oh boy, oh boy. Just not the constructor, because we don't have the event bus service as of right now.
Okay, yeah.
Just saying.
And
So resolve observable, resolve the environment.
and then you would need one more interface. That is the company stock.
Okay.
So generate an interface for company stock.
Fair enough. And if memory serves, it had a
There's
company
a
ID.
for that.
There is?
I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure there was.
Yes, there is. Thank you.
Yeah.
Company ID and a month. Okay. And of course, we're lacking an endpoint in the environment, which is company's endpoint.
You want me to share that as well? Let me see the question.
Oh no, I copied the wrong thing. It's just customers, right? The company's endpoint is customers.
Which one are you looking for?
API companies. Nope, it's companies, it's not customers.
Yeah.
My bad. The company's API is obviously /API/companies because it makes sense. Yep. And now, an interesting thing, we just need to take the data and plop it into the chart and let it figure out its own thing. So yeah, that's very riveting data right here. Did I name the service customer service while consuming. Yes, I did. And I'm going to have to stick with that.
I think that was actually a mistake on my part when I was doing it locally.
Did you tell me to make it the customer service?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So I don't need this data anymore. But I will take... Should I get the companies or the company stock?
For the chart?
Yep.
For the chart, you need the stock. Yeah.
Okay. Why would you suggest you underscore subscribe? And if that all worked, I should be able to run this thing. And Constantine, at this point, if this works, I'm just committing and handing it over to you so you can do the server caching. Because I feel like we're going to run out of time real fast. We're not going to get to the event bus service, but we're going to commit it in the repo afterwards.
That's what I was going to say. There's some parts that we wanted to get to, which are how the two components get into the same view and interact with each other with the the same data, where the grid is no longer going to be bound to the orders, but it's actually going to be bound to the companies. But yeah, we're going to skip that part so that we show the other thing, the optimizations that we wanted to show.
Yeah, because there were people asking about it, so clearly interest there.
Right.
Yep.
So let me see. Mine is currently running fine because it wasn't just now. It looks like everything is all right now. Yep. So yeah, if yours runs fine and we see the chart bound, then you can hand it over to me, and I'll finish with the last part.
Planning on it?
That's a very good question, actually. How do you deploy the Express app into production? Actually, the Angular CLI does have a deploy command, which works with common cloud services and stuff like that. But if you're interested, I can show what I have for a production deploy for Azure on another application. But that's after Damian hands it over to me.
Yeah, so Constantine, I have your data,
perfect.
A lot of it. Oh boy, it looks even, it's a lot of data. But yeah, those random generated numbers really make it look super funky. Okay.
No, it's, so the last part, well, I will show that for deployment. But for that part, why we first wanted to show the chart bound to all of the data points, and then to integrate it with the grid where you select certain companies and only those are shown as stock markers on the chart. But that's going to be available in the repo afterwards when we're going to commit all that. And so you are still going to be able to run it and see that. So Damian, do you want me to share my screen now?
Yeah. Do I have to stop my share for yours to start?
Can you?
Oh no, you're host.
No, I'm not.
You should be able to just take over. Oh,
I'm not.
Okay.
So yeah.
I'm stopping.
Let me.
I remember there's a setting in Zoom that you can set to allow for others to override.
Yeah, and
it's not really easy to find.
By the way, I'm going to refer to my cheat sheet so that things are actually run faster because we're pretty much out of time. Now, we were showing earlier that this grid, for example, is bound to the service that we have on the server side. And when we run the page and get the server side thing, we get the orders rendered, but we also make a request for orders on the client side after the application gets bootstrapped. And that's a question that we got earlier, which asked, are we going to show the server transfer state module? And so there's a minor change that I'm going to do, and I'm going to add this server transfer state module to the app server module in the application. And then in the app module, I'm going to add transfer HTTP. Yeah, and the auto suggest is not going to do anything for me here. So I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to get it from here.
You missed an S in transfer. It's that's why it's not cooperating.
It's still not cooperating with me. I don't know why. It's doing it for a while now, and see here it's not cooperating with me either. But that's from ng-universal, and so I'm just going to copy it from here. I'm going to add it to the imports. So adding these two modules to the app module and the server module, what it does for us is, you're going to say, shouldn't you implement something? But it actually implements an HTTP interceptor. And also on the server side, it writes down as a server cache anything that it received from HTTP requests that were made by the server. And it compiled. First it errored and then it compiled. I don't know what's happening. But let's see what difference this makes. Okay. Oh, I still have an unsaved change. I see what happens.
That's gonna be a problem.
Come on.
Like I said, the moment you start sharing, it's all gone.
Right.
I'm not kidding. Last ng-conf, we had a colleague of ours, Victor, and same thing happened to him as well. Everything was going extra slow.
So let's see. I still had changes not committed. Compiled successfully. This is a good sign, actually. Yeah, we're getting. So let's open the network tab again and make a request again. And what changed is we make the documents orders request, but we no longer have this orders service request from the client to the server. Because the orders service request is already being performed by the server, the response has been collected. And actually, if we take a look at the response from orders, we will see that down at the bottom, there is this script with ID server app state. And if we take a look at what this response looks like, it actually has, for example, API orders, and then whatever API orders got, we have it encoded here. And what this does for us is it actually, by just including two modules, it prevents us from doing double requests. And very often, it's like the server side of your application would actually live closer to the API service that you have, even though it's a separate application. And now, just don't look at the fact that in this application we're building for the workshop, we have the server API actually in the Express engine. In most cases, you're going to have, let's say, an ASP.NET Core API that you consume with endpoints from your services. These endpoints would still be cached on the server side. So it's not only requests that are made with server GET or anything like that on the server side. It's any HTTP request that is performed for, data or for other static resource that can be written in the server transfer cache. And so this minor change with the two imports is actually speeding our application. It's increasing the speed of our application a lot. So I'm going to commit this. Caching server responses in order to show something else as well. And that something else is related to our library, actually. And so in this application, Damian didn't show so far, but how the theming, how the look and feel of these components is achieved is by, including our core styles as well as our theme. And this include, we're technically importing the theme for the entire application library. And if you've noticed actually, I will need to scroll up a bit to get to that, but the size of the CSS right now is about 700 KB, the application plus the library, which is pretty large. But what we have in this application is we're actually not running the entire library because the library contains a lot of components. And we've exposed a way for you to trim down the size of the CSS that is being produced by defining only the components that you use in your application and excluding the rest. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to define a variable which says, which components I have in this application. And we included a grid with paging. We added some column actions. We currently don't have a toast component, do we? Because we didn't implement the notification bus, right? But we have overlays, we have drop downs, and those are like the filtering inputs and so on and so forth. We have an icon in several places in the grid. There is a ripple. If you're going to ask where the ripple is, when you click on this button, for example, there is a ripple effect on it, and it comes from this definition. But now I've just included them. What do I tell the styles, though? Whenever I include the theme, I tell the theme, well, you know what? I want you to exclude all of the components except the ones that I've included. And I'm going to click Save. Now I should get an output for a different styling size, right? And as I said, the styles were initially amounting to about 700 KB. But now we're down to 218. Gzipped, this is between 20 and 40 KB. Should be more towards the 20 side. And we still have the application styling. I think I'm not including something right because of this one. Oh, and I have an action strip, right? But these kinds of optimizations are all included in the documentation of the product and are actually important because when you start, and while you're still developing the application, it's fine to run, for example, with the whole theme. But once you progress, you really want to optimize your application as much as possible, especially before you want to deploy to production. And now, before we go, there was a question about deployment. So I'm going to show something here. I know that we're out of time. Just because there was a question on that, I really want to touch on it. So, and it's not even too latest. How do I hide this? I can move it. Nice. So let me show something here. So this is my Azure Pipelines YAML because my application as the main build, because I have 3 builds, but the main build that actually does the deployment runs through Azure Pipelines. So it's pretty much a standard build which does installation, then runs lint, then runs tests, and then runs the build, the production build with server-side rendering. And before deploying the artifacts, I do something that is called that is a small bash script. And what the pre-deploy does is, because with server-side rendering output that we get by default, I was having trouble running this application on Azure or Azure, I don't know how you call it. And so this type of structure where all the client-side files are all dumped into the browser folder, and then the main server module as well as the rest of the lazy loaded server modules are dumped in the server folder. I was having trouble initiating the correct IIS node run on this server, and then for this server to correctly access the browser folder afterwards. And now part of the reason that was happening is because if we look at the server file, for example, that I have 2 applications in this. That's why there's 2 server files. There is like 2. There's actually 3 source folders because there is reusable services modules, and some of the components are reused. And so what I do here is I have separate environment settings for the dist folders for the applications that are for production and for dev. And so for SSR dev to run, I still have the same structure that we had in the workshop just now. But for production, I just have a browser folder that comes out of root. So it's root/browser where the application lives. And in the pre-deploy, what I do is I move everything from the server folder to the root folder, so that the IIS node just runs directly to main.js as server, and then everything is accessed in /browser from there. And the deployment from that point onwards is just, if I go back to the Azure Pipelines YAML, I just publish the dist, and then I have 2 separate deployment procedures, one for the EBLEAK folder that I have in dist, and another one for the other folder for the second application. And the deployment is just take the files and deploy them, pretty much file deploy on Azure. And post deployment, run the IIS node with the main.js server. All right, and I know I'm 7 minutes over time, but
yeah. Konstantin, I can just mention that if you look at the package JSON, what you have for serve SSR is basically the simplest script on earth, which is like node this file. Oh, you don't have it, but it's in the other project, in the new ones. Your template might be a little bit old these days.
Actually, this application was started with Angular 4 or something like that. So
yeah. Like I said, but in the projects everyone got today, if you look at the serve setting, it's just node/dist server main.js. It's just like run this file. That's it.
Yeah,
that's the entire application right there. And it's actually great because I had to debug that, and this makes it a whole lot easier than you imagine.
Well, for me, it's slightly different because, as I said, I have two applications, so I actually use them concurrently to start both of them at the same time. And those things evolve with a real application, and we try to really touch on how things evolve with this workshop, and I really hope it has been useful for everyone who's been watching.
Yep. Also, we're so plugging Bellum Gens right now.
What?
We're so plugging the Bellum Gens site right now. It's a great site. Also made from scratch by Konstantin and maintained lovingly. So, you can check it out.
Do you have a link on that you want to throw it in the chat?
Oh yeah, I already threw the link for the GitHub repo, and it pretty much has the link to the actual running application as well.
I'm seeing it right now. There.
Yeah. By the way, if you have trouble with things like let's say SSR, this application together with the application that we're committing for this workshop would be a pretty good reference to answer how other people have dealt with issues. Now, if you're wondering, like for example, here I also have the server state transfer, right? But there is a slight caveat to server state transfer when you do authenticated requests, especially to a third domain, or like when not your application's domains are not matching. Authenticated requests would actually not pass because the authentication cookie will get blocked, and not sent by the user agent. And so those requests you actually have to explicitly exclude so that you don't break your application by not making these requests on the client, because that's a common thing that happens actually after you implement the server state transfer. Yeah, and just anything like that, hit me up at any time. I can answer a lot of questions like this because I had to bang my head for a lot of these things for quite a while.
Guys,
I'm putting a link directly to the running, as I put it, running optimized, server-side rendered, fully functional app. It's not for demo. It's Konstantin's CSGO site.
That sounds great. Hey guys, I want to take a moment to thank you for all the time that you put in. I understand.